Hello, good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for attending another round of our CARM open mic session. I'm Maria, the marketing manager at GHY, and as usual, I will be moderating this session today. So we've allocated another 30 minutes for our 10th open mic session. Again, these sessions are dedicated entirely to your questions. It's an opportunity to get answers and learn more about the frequently asked questions GHY has received since the official launch of CARM. So here's how we'll manage the questions this session, like we do every session. First, we encourage attendees to ask their questions live. To do this, please use the raise hand feature by navigating to the top of the Teams window to the meeting controls area and select that little hand icon. We'll call on people in the order that the hands were raised. Once we call on you, please turn on your microphone and video to ask your question, then turn them off again when we either have completed answering your question or after you've asked your question and have nothing further to add. So as a special incentive, as always, we're offering a GHY care package that includes a GHY Blue Guy for the best live question asked. So if you prefer not to ask your question live, that's okay. You can type your question into the Q&A discussion area, and you can access this by navigating to the meeting controls area and clicking on that little Q&A icon. So we'll alternate between live questions and those in the Q&A, making sure to address everyone in turn as best we can. After the session concludes, we'll be sending links to access the recording of the session and some other useful resources on CARM to explore. So our speakers today are Al Dewar, GHY's Executive Vice President, and Sarah Marcotte, our CARM and Special Projects Manager. So we will open up the floor with a bit of an intro by Sarah and Al.
Good afternoon, everybody, and as always, thanks, Maria. I just wanted to give a quick little note on some of the main issues that we've seen arising so everybody knows what's going on. And I think the big thing would be notifications. I'm pretty sure almost everybody has been receiving a plethora of notifications. In some cases, some people mentioned on last week's session that they go in and they don't actually see a notification. So there's a couple issues occurring. The main one, CBSA has a backlog of notifications that are being pushed out. So you may receive a notification today saying you have something that's there, but it may be old. So that is perhaps why you're not seeing one that is posted for the date that that notification is coming out. I would say the second is that the notifications are a little redundant. You're receiving notifications for a lot of things that do not necessarily need your attention, all the way from a CAD submission, which we do on your behalf, to having to take care of a CAD submission, which again, if you get a notification asking you to action a CAD, that's for your customs broker to do. So for us, we would do that on your behalf. And I assume any other customs broker that you are using would also do that on your behalf. That's part of what you are paying us to do. That's why we're here. So those can be ignored. I guess it's good to look in on them, but there's nothing that needs to be actioned on your behalf. Another notification is also in regards to the release prior to payment. Those started back at the beginning of November, and everybody has probably been seeing some of those, but they're getting a little aggressive. I find some people are starting to see notifications saying you've been over your limit for over 10 days and your release prior to payment may be revoked. Note that these are all notifications that the system has been designed to do once it's required. So they didn't decide to just put on a notification saying, hey, you need release prior to payment. They have pushed out all notifications that you will receive once that is a mandatory requirement. So very frustrating, understandably, an extreme amount of unnecessary notifications, but we will, I guess, eventually get there in April when we need them.
April 19th when it's needed, and yet notifications are coming before that.
Yeah, and a lot. So we do understand if you have advised us to obtain a bond on your behalf, we have you on our list and we will, work through that. But if you haven't and you are with us, please let me know or the team know, and we'll definitely make sure that that's being actioned. And GHY is working on that now.
For when you need it at a very aggressive, and I would suggest below market price. We've done a very good job negotiating appropriately to make sure our customers are best looked after. So Sarah and team welcome any dialogue on that regard to offline.
Definitely.
Thanks, guys.
I guess,
Okay.
Maria, I'd like to make a couple of comments, if that's okay.
Sure.
So I'm
Yeah.
pretty excited. This is session 10 on December 10th, and we won't be having another one until the new year. At the new year, we'll probably be having a little bit more to kick off because we certainly are seeing CARM continue to be in the news. Yesterday, we saw it not just at the Standing Committee of Trade, where a unanimous motion was passed that CARM should really be looked at a little bit more because of, the frustration that's existing within many people within the trade community. No, not all people though. Like some things are going through well. But there's a lot that still needs to be looked after. And in addition, then that made the floor of the House of Commons again as well, saying issues exist. Today we also saw though, which testament to CBSA, they have done great work out there. Like this system is not necessarily their fault or their problem, but there was an outreach from CBSA, a year in review of how many shipments went through, all of the interactions that they've had across many other aspects that they oversee. But in relationship to CARM in particular, those of us that follow CARM closely found it very interesting that CBSA, boasted in October that they saw like 4 million commercial account declarations processed, of which $5.4 billion of duty and taxes were calculated, yet only 2.4 billion payments were received. That's less than half. So I'm not sure the overall excitement about how the calculation works, but yet the collection is that much different. And I believe those collection issues largely are a result of incongruencies with how service providers can account. Service providers are still holding back on accounting things that CBSA's system can't accept with the right calculations. So that gap has been closing, but there's still issues that need to be addressed. And as each issue is addressed, you're rest assured, I'm sure your service provider like GHY is doing the accounting, but you may see, as Sarah alluded to, these actions saying, these need your attention. Well, we can't process them if they are not prepared to accept the appropriate accounting. Talked to one customs broker who shared, well, look, I've got this audit for a customer of mine. The audit says, here's this tariff classification, and here's this annex code or relief code. And that's a government audit. And that's how we've made our database work. And yet CBSA's system won't accept what their own audits have set forward. So those things are still being worked through. They are making inroads each and every week. And I expect more things to be closed near the end of the year. But as Sarah alluded to, it's got to be very frustrating to people that look at their account and see, an incomplete picture if they can see anything at all.
Yeah. And to just try to understand what CBSA is telling you. I can only imagine any of you importers out there that have multiple accounts too, if you're getting notifications on each one and you don't know where they are and what's going on. But for the most part, I would say don't stress about it. CBSA is working through a lot of aspects, and if you don't see anything on your account that's specific to an actual immediate action that we can't handle for you.
And they're trying to prioritize as well. We get notification, oh, hi, we're as October 21st to December 3rd. In many cases, they've said, well, that's not a priority, so we're not going to work on that one. Well, if you're an importer, well, why are you notifying me if it's not a priority, if you're not going to there to help me? So there, again, incongruencies, but as Sarah alluded to, don't stress. The transitional plan has provided ability that they can close the loop where they can and have to, and your service provider, whether it be GHY or any other broker, can support in the background. So with that, I won't say anything more. We've talked a lot. We're here. This is about open mic to answer questions and share experiences.
Okay, I think we have another bit of a shy crowd. Just waiting for some questions to come through here. Anybody want to raise their hands? We can take a live question.
I can share the portal. We'll try again. We'll see how sharing is. I'll try to share while we're waiting and give a little, I can just do a little demo that might give
Good idea.
people some questions. So talking about notifications, that being one of the big things that we're talking about. When you log into your portal, your notifications are going to be right here up at the top. And as you can see, there's just tons of notifications. Some may seem relevant, like statement of account. Delegation is, maybe we've changed permission on some aspects, but a lot of people may also see CAD. I think there's release and CAD acceptances that come through, so that can be a little bit much.
You know what I find hilarious, Sarah, as you get into this? So, and somebody was pointing out to me, Al, you got to buy more so that we can make better use of your portal. But let me just say, as Sarah's demoing on this portal, I've done one transaction and she's looking at it. I don't even know how many notifications. I think this is hilarious. One transaction and this is how much you see it. I can't imagine what a real business must be subject to. Sorry, Sarah.
Oh, that's all good. That's speaking to the point, right? And this here is, I guess, your perfect example of you have you've only done one shipment. So what is your shipment threshold really at? And you're already getting a notice that your limit is past what it's supposed to be. It's exceeded it for 10 days or more. And failure to action could continue to impact your compliance records negatively. So
and what's
again, that's stressful, right?
And what's frustrating to me on this, and I can't imagine, like, again, a true importer. I think this was like a $10 shipment. Mm-hmm. I have posted security for $10, but last year there was 1 month, and it was the month actually that CBSA was supposed to transition over. I helped a friend out and I cleared a shipment where there was a $200 obligation. So this is based on my highest month or what your highest month would be. And because through their calculation, even though I've got adequate security for this month, it doesn't meet their overall desired threshold when they look at me as an entity. So it's interesting.
Well, and I mean, that's not the way that they explained it to be. So I think there's a lot that they need to review, because what we have to keep in mind is the way that CBSA has explained these notifications and that they're going to occur when you have not made a payment that is going to positively impact that value that you owe. So it's showing here Al doesn't have an overdue balance, nor does he actually have a total balance. I don't know what it stated at the time and how long it took for him to pay, but part of that is looking at how much you owe compared to how much you've posted and telling you once you've hit 75% of that total security, that's when you're going to start getting those types of notifications.
Well, the irony is,
I find that shocking that you're getting that.
So the irony though is you say that, okay, first off, GHY paid on time.
Yeah, so you have your shipment here.
And we paid on time. It took them a little longer to take it out for whatever reason, but whatever. But don't send me a notification if it's taking you too long to process something. And then, yes, I have put in a security deposit of $10, and I guess I went over my limit by 49 cents. Let the notifications come.
So we do have a live question here. We will grab that. Rohita, did you want to go ahead with your question?
Sure. I have two questions, if I'm allowed. The
Absolutely.
first question, when you were demoing the portal, we recently got a nice officer on the phone, and he actually cleared everything out of our overdue balance and put it back to normal when it should be. So that was really, really good. Yes, it took them a long time, but now I open up my portal and I really like it to see which is what I owe at the end of November, which is good.
That's excellent. Thank you for sharing, Regina.
Yeah. Now, my other question is, and I think we've talked about this before as well. So I was able to get the bond for the temporary entries. So I got a bond and it's all set up. And my question to you is, I know that there is a form on the portal that I'm supposed to complete when I'm expecting a temporary import. So once I've completed that, what happens next? Are they able to see this particular form on the portal at the border point, or do we still have to have paper?
I recommend at this time that it's still paper. It's been port to port, it really depends. The officers are learning in real time as well. So I wouldn't risk a driver showing up without it, but technically they are supposed to be able to see anything that is in the portal. So C-types and temporary imports, I say for both of those, just ensure that that driver has that paperwork. I've heard, I think was on LinkedIn. I saw a guy who he went to a port. He needed to have 2 copies of his paperwork. He had to put it down. And, I kind of commented, this is not very paperless, but, hopefully they do get to that stage, but I would definitely just say have the backup.
So currently, or before CARM, we used to have an E29B that the broker sent to the border point.
Yeah.
And we did not have an E29B that we could give to the driver. So it went directly to the border point. Do we still have to do that, or can we just send it with the driver?
Just send it with the driver. So when if you're doing your temporary on your own through the portal, just log in, do your temporary, and then you can print it, have that printed, supplied to them. And from what I've seen from the clients that do have temporaries, it changes to acquitted, accepted and then acquitted or something like that once they review them. So in the portal, they are updating them as they cross and then as they close.
So when they're crossing out of Canada, for example, out of the US, let's say, and they enter Canada, we have a stamped E29B currently. And then when they go out again, that E29B is stamped at the border again to close it. Is that process still the same?
Yes, technically, it's just the stamp is technically online. Again, as the officers are learning, I can't say what their action is going to be, but what they're supposed to be doing is reviewing it through the portal, changing it to accepted when the goods have come into Canada, and then quitting it once they have gone back to the US and closed that bond.
But what we recommend is still asking for a stamp as it leaves in that, it may be forgotten, Rahita. So particularly as transitioning, it wouldn't hurt to have that piece of information if you need to later connect with somebody via the portal to make sure it gets canceled.
Perfect.
Closed.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. The other point you mentioned, Rahita, which is really good, we have been hearing that people that do reach somebody at the help desk has been getting a lot of training. In fact, they've also more than doubled their staff there, and they had a good sized staff before, but they've more than doubled it as far as this particular onboarding process. So it's encouraging to note that that is taking place, and it might be discouraging to note that they've had to double government resources for a program that's supposed to be electronic and more efficient, but could be just part of the transition.
Yeah, so I just want to share one more thing about that is the officer actually called me, and it was in response to my help desk ticket.
Mhm.
And he responded to me, and he called me and he says that we've received all your payments, so would you like me to just clear everything? And I said that would be the best. And he also mentioned that there is something that I'm supposed to have at RM level, an indication in the system with RM level, which is not there, but it is at a business number level. And he had to ask Laura Lee, that the person that you had recommended to talk to see if he can fix that. So I don't know if it's fixed or not, but this is what he mentioned. So maybe there is what kind of indication he didn't tell me. But that was the reason why it wasn't clear in the way it should be.
Well, thank you for sharing. And I would assume that as CBSA work on getting the portal further adjusted, some of those things will take place. Thanks for sharing, Rahita.
Yeah, no, great. I hope it comes in handy to anybody else who is suffering from the same problem. Thank
Thanks,
you again.
Rita. Okay, we will jump over into the Q&A now. So we've got two questions from Christina here. The first one is, online in my CARM portal, the financial information shows an overdue balance. This amount should have been paid by UPS. Are third parties still paying these amounts, or are we now paying this directly to CBSA? Second part of the question is, when is GHY doing bonds for their customers that have asked for GHY to assist in the process?
Excellent questions. So the first one, I can't really answer outside of how GHY addresses it. Each third party or each broker is going to have their own way of choosing to do things. So the best answer there is to reach out to your broker and discuss with them what they are going to be doing or what is expected of you. As for GHY, we have promised to continue to do as we do today. Apologies, I might be lagging a little bit here. It looks like my internet connection is a little bit behind today.
Yeah, we can hear you just fine though. It's just the video.
Yeah, so for GHY, we are continuing to pay on our clients' behalf if they have asked us to. If a client chooses to change how they pay, then we just ask that they let us know so that we can alter how we invoice to make sure you're not getting confused on double paying, or if you want to pay in the portal, we can of course address that as well. So I recommend in that case, call UPS, find out if they're paying on your behalf. If you've paid them, I would hope that they have paid it or giving you your money back. As for the second question, that's a great question as well, and definitely where we are focusing our next energy on will be on the bonds for our customers. So surety companies did not have they didn't have everything in place on day one. CBSA really only started working with surety companies on that electronic submission once CARM went live. So we're starting to see a lot of movement with that, and we're working with our surety provider, and we're expecting to get rolling on bonds in January of 2025. We want to ensure, everybody has bonds well before needed. So there's those emails that you're seeing now, you won't be receiving when you actually need that bond.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you for your question. And we'll go to the next one here from Rowena. I have registered for CARM, a new company, but it did not go through. It says system error. I submitted a ticket online at CBSA, but it's almost a month now and I haven't heard back. I only have the business number when I registered. I don't have the RM number. Could it be the reason why it was rejected?
So I've seen a system reject where people get almost all the way through and then you're almost done, and then it kind of gives this weird reject message. I have logged a ticket for a client that this occurred to, and I never received a response, but I just logged in every once in a while and the system error did go away and I was able to complete the registration. So I recommend trying that. It shouldn't be that you don't have an RM because that's part of your registration. Part of completing it is getting to that spot. If you do need assistance, you can try giving them a call. Sometimes they might be able to jump on, but as we know, the line has been pretty busy.
To make sure that there's no confusion, we're assuming you're talking about having went through the portal. If, for instance, you went to get the business number through CRA because you're a non-resident importer, then that's a bit more of a two-step aspect.
No, I'm pretty sure. I mean, Rowena, I don't know if you can pop on, but my understanding is there's like a very specific system error that comes up as you're going through the portal.
Okay, I just wanted to confirm.
But yeah, let's verify if it's that or if there's something else, because the other option too could be clearing your cookies and your cache, but that doesn't typically happen over and over.
Yeah.
Usually every day you can change it.
If you're a Canadian resident importer, everything Sarah just said is 100% right. If you're non-resident, we can talk more.
If you're non-resident, but within the US, you can still get your RM through the portal, and that is still actively working as well, but it stops you at requiring to put in your forms for your books and records. You have to upload your books and records form, and then you have to wait for CBSA to reach out to you, but you don't get a system error for that. You just have to wait for CBSA to review and approve your books and records of being outside of Canada. If your books and records will be in Canada, even though you are a non-resident, then there's a box that you should be checking, and that should bypass that aspect.
Thanks, Sarah.
Perfect. Thanks for your question, Marina. Okay, we'll go to the next one here. Just give me a moment. And this one's from Valerie. If we have not delegated a courier, FedEx/UPS, etc., authorization in CARM, will they be able to clear shipments through CBSA on our behalf, or will it default to GHY or designated custom broker in the system?
Interesting.
I love this question. How about if I start, because
All
it
right.
still blows my mind. FedEx and UPS could absolutely clear shipments on your behalf. They just won't be able to account for them on your behalf. So they'll be able to create the liability, but not finish the accounting. The only party that can finish the accounting is brokers that are designated or delegated within the system. It blows my mind that the system enables somebody who isn't delegated or designated to create a liability, but doesn't control from an accounting. It drives the importer to have that particular ownership. I don't know if you could say that better or punctuate it different, Sarah. It's just I don't understand how I can charge something on your behalf, even though you don't want me to do it, and you're liable to pay it, and you don't even know it happened. I don't get it.
Yeah, well, I mean, I know why it's happening, but I agree. I think it's a silly aspect, but we have to keep in mind that CBSA is working off of two different systems. So their release system is not necessarily associated to the accounting system, so it doesn't register the delegation at this time at release. That could be definitely something we see down the road, and might be good for this type of a situation. Definitely, courier should not be clearing your goods if they don't have power of attorney, and that would be the avenue to go if you're really wanting to ensure that your broker is the designated broker that's clearing your goods.
No, a broker shouldn't be clearing anything without power of attorney either.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Thanks, Valerie, for your question. We'll jump over into the live questions. Denise, you've got your hand up. Did you want to go ahead?
Hi, good afternoon. Just continuing on with couriers and other forwarders create a liability on our account, but they're not delegated, so they can't account for it. How do we fix that? Do we tell them to forward the paperwork to our broker, or do we give them a one-time delegation so that they can account for it themselves? Like, what would the recommended fix be?
Yeah, I think that's definitely, it's a great question on how you want to operate with the courier, and definitely an individual decision, company by company, I would say. You do have a couple options. Definitely, you can go back to that courier and you can say, you don't have a power of attorney with me, and I don't want the goods cleared by you. Please have this transferred over to my broker. Here's the information. And it still operates the same as it did prior to CARM, where before goods are final accounted, Form A48 can be filed with CBSA to have that moved over.
The frustrating thing, though, and so great answer, Sarah. The frustrating thing, Denise, is that when you appoint authority, if you said, look, I just want them to cover this one particular transaction, you can't delegate them for just the transaction. You're delegating them to have the ability to do that confirmation. And then it's like you have to go in and then take the delegation away after the fact too. So it's very labor intensive in that regard. But in order to close it off, the party who released should account. And what Sarah alluded to, absolutely, it's just and it's the bane of many people's existence. Look, I want to deal with a single service provider so that I have all of my compliance eggs in one basket. And whether that be a GHY or a courier or whomever it happens to be, the other parties within the supply chain should adhere to your requirements in that regard and follow appropriately.
Yeah, I kind of have another question too on the flip side of that.
Mm.
Couriers can release on their own BN number for us. And we get this all the time because our company name sounds like a personal name. So they go ahead and say, oh, this is for a person, not for a company. And they go ahead and release it under their own BN. And then they send us a bill for it. And 9 out of 10, the bill is wrong. Like
Right.
they've done something wrong. The bill is wrong. And the brokerage is way too high. That's another thing altogether. But how do I stop them from releasing my stuff on their own business number? Like I was kind of hoping that with CARM coming in, that they would have to reach out to us and say, we have the shipment, who's your broker?
And they absolutely should do that. It's just too much of a process maybe for the scale of what they're managing. I would recommend not paying them. And you know, I think if they've got it right as far as the declaration goes, they happen to, and this is my personal opinion, they are the importer of record. You don't have anything assessed against your account as long as the duty and taxes are appropriate. That, you know, they should be covered for the work that they've done in that regard. And a reminder that, hi, we're not paying any brokerage fees because you weren't authorized, but you know, out of the goodness of our heart, we're at least covering off because you didn't follow instructions as to what you should otherwise be doing to whoever your service provider is.
Okay, so that's kind of status quo. That's what I've been doing with them forever, is going back to them saying, you're not my broker. I don't want you to be my broker, and you shouldn't have touched this. So as a punishment, I'm not paying your brokerage fees, but I'll pay the duty and taxes.
There you go.
And
You've
that's
got it.
fair. Yeah, I would definitely say that's fair. And I mean, we would all hope that that would go away, but like Al said, that there is an extreme amount of goods that are going to come across the border that may be personal, and that's going to be a lot of work for UPSs, FedExes, all those to differentiate what is what. I do want to make note, the other thing that is possible if you're having a hard time with UPS transferring it over to your correct broker, you could always reach out to us, and if we have full visibility, we should be able to see that. The problem would be that we would get limited information to be able to final account as well. So we would kind of be over declaring what they've already declared, but we could definitely final account for it in the portal and possibly pull it into our system. We would just probably have to redo all the work.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah, so
I
I
mean,
mean,
you
you
know,
wouldn't be paying them anyway, but so something that you and I could take offline and we could even test with an entry and see how we'd be able to complete it for you.
okay. I don't have one live now that I know about. Haven't received any strange invoices from UPS in the last little while. But they used to send those snail mail, and I guess that's not going to happen for a while anyways.
Yeah, true.
All right. Thanks for your help.
Thank
Thanks,
you.
Denise. Appreciate the question. Anita made a comment here. You can also send your broker or request your broker to send in a cancellation letter to other brokers on your behalf. So good point there, Anita. Thanks for that. On that note, I think I'll share Doug. Good to see you online. He's sent in some 5 golden things. So first of all, Merry Carmas. I love that. 5 tips for CARM. Clear subject line indicating the problem. So example, revoke CARM registration. Another tip, create a CARM notification email with the rule to send these to a folder automatically until notifications are more detailed. Don't stress over them. Drink hot chocolate. Brown issues, there is contact information here, carm@ups.com and Canada Brokerage, cs@ups.com. Line up your bonds early in January, avoid the rush, and of course, we will share the GHY CARM 11 in the new year. Invite other coworkers and clients and remind them that registrants can watch the recording. Love it. Thank you, Doug. Appreciate those. Okay, on that.
For us now.
I think so.
Thanks, Doug.
Yeah. Thank you. Okay, so on that note, I don't see any more questions coming through, and I don't see any hands raised. So we will close off our session today. We've reached the conclusion of our 10th and last open mic session for the year. Again, more to come in 2025. We want to thank you all for your participation and such insightful questions as always. As a reminder, I will be sending out a follow-up email with links to the session recording and additional CARM resources. So please reach out to us at any point. We're always here to help. And we want to wish everyone happy holidays and a happy new year.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Happy New Year.